We're delighted to have Jeff Lowe of Asian Sky Group. Jeff's Asian Sky is a brokerage, it's an advisory firm, it's a consultancy, and it's also the best source of data on what's going on in the Asian market by far. So we're delighted to have Jeff to take us through how is Asia evolving.
Yeah, I've been bugging Al for a number of years to include more Asian content in his conferences. And he called and said, well, why don't you come to Dubai? And, that'd be a great opportunity for you. And then I sat through the operator panel this morning and I went, I see why I'm here. I'm here to try to cheer you up, as he says, because if you think things are bad here, you might want to come on over to Asia for A-Base in a couple of weeks and take a look at that market. Part of our job, and certainly I think Al was subscribed to this, is our job is hopefully to give you all information that you can use to make better business decisions. Part of the reason why I've always been pushing for more content about Asia, it is a market you need to try to understand as best you can, and even if it is maybe not at its high point at the moment, as we all know in this room, there are opportunities when things are going up and opportunities when things are going down or when things aren't going as well. There's always opportunities, and certainly our job at Asian Sky Group, one of the things we try to do is give you that data, and we try to make that data you can go to the bank based on, if you will. Try to give you that data so that you can then decide whether the opportunity is there for you or not. So we have a number of publications that we publish every year. Some of them are B2B, some of them are B2C. But I think probably the one that everyone knows is we do an Asia Pacific year-end business aviation fleet report. So we tabulate at the end of the year, and do it as almost like a corporate annual report. We look at the Asia Pacific business jet fleet and report to you on all the comings and goings that happen in that market through the year. And we've been doing it since 2012. So it's kind of a publication. I'm sure there are a few people in the audiences that would go, yeah, we use it for all our planning. Thank you very much, Jeff. So it's something that's been around for a long time, and everyone looks with great anticipation to it being published. So that's actually getting released next, 2 weeks from now in Shanghai at A-Base. I have some slides basically from that report. I can tell you with great honesty, it's still going through drafts, but hopefully I've got some information to give you some idea of what that will be in a couple of weeks, and also give you an idea of what did happen in Asia. That's wrong. Okay, taking a look at what the root of the problem may be. It's not too scientific. One of the things we also do is we do a market survey every 3 months. I love the market survey because most of the time it's going in a completely different direction than the data itself. The data is going this way, but the market survey is going that way. The market survey is very, if you will, it's not terribly scientific. It's a very touchy-feely set of questions that we ask everyone. We've got about 500 respondents in the Asia-Pacific region, and we ask them, how do you feel about the business at the moment? Where are we in the business cycle? Are you using your airplane more? Very simple questions, and then we try to present all that data. So part of the problem you can see is that optimism is certainly not at its peak anymore. Starting really from the end of 2017, optimism has been sadly missing. Particularly in Greater China, you can see the drop-off that occurred as far as optimism in China. And I think we all have been in the business long enough to know that sentiment is a big factor when it comes to buying aircraft. And so this is basically the evaporation of any positive sentiment. And so you can see this is one of the major factors that drag down the Asia-Pacific market. And not too surprisingly for China, that coincided with trade war with the U.S., affecting people's optimism looking forward through the year. And also, frankly, the China economy is not doing as well as it used to be. So that was another big factor. And of course, if you're not maybe feeling so optimistic and you've got overriding business concerns, you're probably not using your airplane as much as well. So again, you can see that band at the top regarding how much I'm using my airplane is getting narrower and narrower as time has moved on as well. So I'm not very optimistic. I'm not using my airplane as much. So my purchase intention is down as well. So you can see that reflected in the numbers. Again, sort of plunging down fourth quarter 2017, and certainly not much improvement through the rest of 2018. Just a little bit of a background on the market in Asia. I mean, if I am going to buy an airplane, again, predominantly the market demand is and will always probably remain for the foreseeable future. I'm always looking at buying a large cabin airplane. You can see the sort of demand here that you have for that size of an aircraft. So what that all meant at the end of the year regarding the Asia Pacific fleet is growth was down once again. It's been 3 years in a row now where the market has been contracting, well, not contracting, but the growth has been diminishing for 3 years in a row now in the Asia Pacific region. The way we do our fleet analysis is, if I'm a Singaporean owner, but I have an N-registered airplane, it's based in Van Nuys, and I fly to the United States, it's not part of the Asia Pacific fleet. So for us, the Asia Pacific fleet is an aircraft that's based in the region and is operated in the region. If it's outside of the Asia Pacific region, even though it may be an Asian owner, it's not in the Asia Pacific fleet, so we don't count it. And for us, a big part of how we do our analysis, this is not just new aircraft deliveries. This is also very much pre-owned aircraft deliveries. So we get our data from all the OEMs, but then we also get all our data from every operator who we call and we ask him what his fleet is. And we also get it from all the aviation authorities, so the registration, they provide us our data, and yeah, that's about it. As I tell people, we kind of take all that data, we put it into a big pot, we stir it around for a couple of weeks. Inevitably there are conflicts. Some people are trying to make their numbers sometimes look a little bit better. So again, we all have to, at the end of the day, probably sit down and we determine whether or not it should be counted or it shouldn't be counted. So again, for us, a big part of the analysis, this is not just this is not just new aircraft deliveries, pre-owned aircraft as well. And certainly what we have seen in the region, if you go back 3 years, 3 years ago it was 60% new, 40% pre-owned. But today in the market, you've got 60% pre-owned and 40% new. So pre-owned has become a big part of the Asia Pacific market. So when you see that number where we say the market just grew 1.4%, that's new aircraft deliveries, and that's pre-owned aircraft deliveries, but minus all the aircraft that left the region as well. So this is the net number for growth. So new aircraft deliveries, pre-owned aircraft that entered into the region, and then everything that left the region as well. So to break down that number, as you can see, you've got 54 new deliveries, and you've got 55 pre-owned deliveries, but you had 93 aircraft that left the region. And as I always say at this point in time, Asia Pacific, if you will, the China market, it's definitely a market you have to keep your eye on. It's going to be where a lot of the future is. But again, it's not really a big market. I mean, as I tell people, there are more general aviation aircraft based in Van Nuys Airport in California than there are in all of China. Okay, so again, you have to kind of keep some perspective as well. But the future, I mean, you've got a continent or a country that's the same size as the United States, and it's growing, it's adding more airports, and the wealth generation that's occurring there, it's definitely a market you have to be aware of and keep an eye on. And you can see how the numbers have changed over the years, 2016, 17, and 18. So again, with 54, so new deliveries have gone down just slightly, but they held up very well. Pre-owned editions, likewise, but you can see the deductions is where all the changes occur. And what we're trying to recognize here is there's also traffic or movements that are taking place within the Asia Pacific region as well. The net growth is about aircraft coming into the Asia Pacific region and going out of the Asia Pacific region. At the meantime, there's also airplanes that are moving around within the region as well. Because one of the things we also track is transactions, and transactions may occur between countries and may take place within a country in the Asia Pacific. So we look at fleet, but then we also look at transactions so that we have an idea of the size of the market, as in what dollar values are that market size. So where did all that growth occur, or where didn't it occur? Historically, China has been the engine of growth in the Asia-Pacific region. It's by far the biggest market, it has the biggest fleet, and certainly every other year other than this year, it has always been what has been driving the growth. Last year, for instance, as you'll see here, the growth was 8%, but this is also what, if you will, moved the needle the most, and then China actually contracted last year as far as fleet size. So more airplanes left China than went in at the end of the day. So that's why you actually had negative growth for the China fleet. What kind of saved the day at the end of the day was Southeast Asia, which is a more mature market as well. So you're looking at Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia. They all had quite reasonable growth, and that's what kind of helped the numbers remain positive at the end. So again, if I break it down more specifically by country, you can get an idea of the top performers, but right down at the bottom of the list is mainland China. So Greater China was less than, contracted just less than 1%, but China in itself actually contracted 2%. For people in the Asia-Pacific region, this is like shocking news, okay? I know, it might not hit all you the same way, but that's just like a staggering reversal of fortunes. I think we all kind of had a feeling, but as I always say that the numbers kind of never lie, and there you go. That feeling was, if you will, validated. As far as how the OEMs did, Gulfstream is very reliant on the China market. If you looked at the numbers from our fleet report for year-end 2017, every second 650 went into the China market. It's always been a big airplane market, and it's been dominated by Gulfstream. But, so as China goes, so does Gulfstream's fortunes a bit. And so as you can see here, Gulfstream didn't have much growth at all this year, and that was all because of China. And really the big winner was Bombardier. They have a much more well-balanced fleet distribution throughout the region. They're big in Australia, they're big in India, they're big in Southeast Asia. Yes, they're in China, but having not all their eggs in one basket certainly helped them this year, where they were able to have good numbers. And when you look at the actual aircraft segments, again, you can see the long-range airplanes are always the dominant one, but very interesting, large cabin continues to contract. Not much growth through the others as well. If I look at new aircraft deliveries, the top aircraft being delivered into the region, 650 and 650ERs, 550s, Global 6000 and 8X. Then the pre-owned additions, as you can see, some old tech going into the region. And then the majority of the deductions being with the 550 and 450 sizes. The top 10 operators in the Asia-Pacific region are normally Chinese or Greater China. So again, given the fortunes with China this year, they're the ones that also suffer the most. But some of them certainly added quite a number of aircraft to their fleet as well. So you can see some of those perennial top management companies, Learjet, for instance, having a big decline, BAA having a big decline, Hong Kong Jet. These are a lot of what I call the legacy management companies in the region. So they're experiencing quite a lot of challenges these days. It was interesting this year in that it was probably the hardest year we had getting the data. Certainly a lot of operators were not as willing to disclose their fleet data as in previous years. Fortunately, as I said, we have multiple sources, so in the end we get what we need, but certainly a lot of them knew it was not a good year. A lot of them particularly didn't want that message out there. So it always requires a little bit of extra work on our behalf to try to get that information. But as you can see, some had significant gains as well. Sinojet, Amber Aviation, and these I would say are the new up-and-coming management companies. They tend to be more boutique type operator where you're given a list of services you can choose from and you select what you want. Some of those older legacy ones are still a full service type of operator. You get everything or you get nothing. And so that model isn't as popular anymore. A lot of the owners are wanting to take some of that control back and only get what they're missing. And so that sort of boutique operator is certainly one that's become more the norm in the Asia Pacific region. And I just had a couple of other slides. We're finally, one of the things we've been trying to do for a number of years is get more information about how the airplanes are actually being used in our region. We talk about the fleet, and we're able to talk about transactions, but at the end of the day, there's not a lot of information necessarily available on what actually people are doing with the aircraft. And this is primarily because we don't have an FAA, we don't have a Eurocontrol. We've got 28 different countries, all with their own regulatory environment and overflight and everything else, and there's no central gathering, if you will, entity. So certainly, and this is just more to give you some idea that we are moving further down that road and getting more data, looking at departures from different size aircraft, from different manufacturers, to where we're also then looking at top airports, where we're seeing the traffic, where the traffic's going from the region. Is it within the region? Is it going out of the region, and where is it going? And then also looking at the most traveled city pairs as well, to see where, again, the aircraft are being used and how they're being used. So again, all valuable information, hopefully in the end, helps people understand what the region's been. Looking forward to 2019, and I'm almost done. Not too surprisingly, a lot of challenges in our region as far as transactions. Buying an aircraft out of the Asia Pacific region, and particularly out of the China market, is challenging to the inexperienced. And certainly part of that is, the demand or the availability of aircraft is certainly getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And you can see that reflected in the numbers here. Also, we're now starting to see the asking prices flatten out and firm up. And then likewise, also the days on market are starting to finally tail off a little bit, but not as much as you'd think, because a lot of the airplanes that are available are the ones that people don't want. So that number is still not coming down, because a lot of the older airplanes that are sitting on the market aren't being sold, and so that number is not adjusting. So as I said, just a little bit of a snapshot of what's happening in the Asia Pacific region. Like I said, hopefully some of you in the audience are going, okay, maybe my experience here in the Middle East at the moment isn't as bad as I thought it was. But I did sort of look at the panel this morning. We certainly have a lot of similar challenges. I guess it will get better. I mean, it has to. There's so much demand in the region in the Asia Pacific. So I think once China gets itself sorted out a little bit, it'll continue to obviously grow, and the numbers will get better. Thank you.
Jeff, very quickly, you've got 3 questions, 4 questions, it's all coming through. Some of these I'll let you answer at lunch, but any take on India? 2 trillion economy, stuck up to 125 jets, domestic regulatory tax framework seems hopeless. This is someone else's question, not me.
Yes.
What about international charter, e.g. Dubai based in India? Thoughts?
To be honest, I don't know.
Great, thank you very much, Jeff.
Yeah, I suppose I could try to make something up, but yeah, I actually have no idea. So, I mean, it's a challenging market for all the reasons that were stated. Yeah, I mean, you've got a lot of operators there that are all single airplane operators, because that was to avoid the tax. If I can become a charter operator, I avoid paying the tax. So, but as to the market and what may be holding it back as far as growing international charter, I'm not as close to that market, I'm afraid.
Okay, another question. Japan, question mark. Why does it continue to disappoint?
Actually, I would say it doesn't disappoint anymore, frankly. I mean, I've been out in Asia now since '97, and so actually it's heck of a lot better now than it was back then. And I guess you hope to see a change over 20 years. But actually, there's a lot of momentum in the Japanese market at the moment. A lot of it is all coming from the Olympics. So I think the JCAB and the Japanese Business Aviation Council are quite encouraged. I mean, we are seeing a lot of changes as far as access, availability, parking, and everything happening in Japan at the moment. It's never quick enough and it's never enough, but actually it's one of the regions that we kind of look at the moment. It's taking the right steps and doing the right things, so it's actually getting better.
Okay. Final question. Would you consider doing similar reports and research for the Middle East?
Yes. You know the answer to that question.
And this is an audience question.
Yes. I mean, we've looked at other regions of the world. We're particularly, when we first did the first Asia Pacific one, it was actually really motivated by China. And again, it was this big dark hole and nobody really knew what was going on. And so we took it upon ourselves to kind of shine a light down that hole and see if we could finally, for everyone, come up with a fleet size that everyone would agree on. You used to be able to put 10 people in the room and all ask them how big's the China fleet. You got 10 very different answers. And certainly we see Africa is another big challenge where, if you will, kind of a fleet report would hopefully achieve the same sort of thing. And again, the idea is the more people understand the market and the size of the market, the more that people can understand what I need to do or what I want to do or what the opportunity is. And so certainly we'd be more than interested in doing that in the Middle East as well. It certainly would be easier